Welcome to Volume 2 of You Would Be Paranoid Too If This Happened to You. I'm Tyrone Waters. I'm going to tell you about the chiropractic doctor, Billy Flowers, whose office address is 2124 Northeast Hancock, Portland, Oregon, 97212, and his office phone number is 503-287-5504. And the connection that he had with Delta Airlines when I filed my case against Delta Airlines. My mom and I were in an automobile accident. We went to be treated for our injuries by Dr. Billy Flowers. While I continued to receive treatment there was a Delta Airlines employee that would be at all of my doctor's appointments just outside of Dr. Billy Flowers' doctor's office, making threats towards me. How did this person know when my appointments were? It's clear that Dr. Flowers was releasing this information to the Delta employee. When I confronted Dr. Flowers about it, he had me arrested for stalking, criminal mischief, and criminal trespassing, and I spent 30 days in jail. Is this the kind of doctor you want treating you? Dr. Flowers contracts with Kaiser Permanente. I will never seek medical treatment from Dr. Billy Flowers ever again. Also, when I was homeless and living in a motel room on North Interstate in Portland, Dr. Billy Flowers called my motel room and stated, "I thought you were dead." He also stalked me to a motel room in the Seattle area. And now let me bring you up to date on the most recent developments at my apartment at 1725 Southeast Morrison, number 2. On 3/27/2010, 3 cans of black eyed peas were stolen from my apartment. On 3/28/2010, medications were tampered with in my apartment. On 3/30/2010, the bottom lock was found unlocked and tampered with in my apartment while I was at home. On 4/1/2010, drugs were found on the kitchen counter in my apartment. On 4/2/2010, a notepad of my diary was stolen from my apartment. On 4/9/2010, a work ink pen was missing from my apartment. On 4/14/2010, Quest Telephone Company, directly across the street from my apartment building, was doing sewer work across the street. On 4/15/2010, Quest Telephone Company sealed up the sidewalk across the street in front of their door with cement. On 5/13/2010, an ibuprofen prescription was stolen from my apartment. On 5/15/2010, approximately 12 noon, James gave me a piece of my mail, a phone bill, and it had been opened. James is my neighbor. On 5/16/2010, James's friend came over at approximately 4 p.m. Later in the evening, my friend stopped by. I stepped out of the apartment and closed my door and locked both locks and went down to the curb to talk to my friend. When I returned to my apartment 5 minutes later, I found my door had been opened and I found the locks unlocked shortly after 6 p.m. There was no one else around except for James in his apartment. On 5/17/2010, I turned in a copy of my diary to Reach Manager Carrie Lewis. She said she would talk to her supervisor about it. This was shortly after 8:30 a.m. They have done nothing about it. On 5/25/2010, I received a letter from Reach, which I will read momentarily. On 6/16/2010, my neighbor James's friend was outside of my back door at 3:52 a.m. trying to get in. I banged on the door from the inside of my apartment, and his friend ran off the back porch over to James's apartment. and I heard James yell out loud to his friend and say, "You blew it," on 6/22/2010. I left my apartment at approximately 10 a.m. and returned at 1 p.m. approximately. And when I entered my apartment, I found ink pen marks on my recliner chair that were not there when I left at 10 a.m. I called police to file a report, and I called Reach to report vandalism. Reach said they could not hear me on the phone.
Bill.
In a letter dated May 25, 2010 from Reach, it reads as follows. Regarding your note received May 20th and telephone call on May 18th. Dear Mr. Waters, I have reviewed your list of concerns and allegations about your neighbor, Mr. Stovall, as well as the previous concerns you have raised, the police reports we have received, and other correspondence. I have also reviewed all notices and actions taken by Reach with Mr. Stovall. As you know, privacy restrictions prevent me from releasing any information about one resident to another resident. However, I can assure you that each incident has been followed up and appropriate actions have been taken. Reach has responded to each of your previous concerns, and your lock has been changed a number of times. If you have additional third-party confirmation of your allegations about missing items, canned goods, pen, notebook, over-the-counter medicine, etc., lock tampering, or the appearance of drugs, I would welcome that information. If you wish to consider moving to a different property managed by Reach, I would encourage you to review our property listings on the Reach website. You may want to request assistance from Austin Erdman to identify those properties you may be interested in and complete waiting list applications. Or if you feel that Austin's assistance in trying to resolve differences with your neighbor would be beneficial, I would encourage you to talk with him. Since you are unhappy with Reach, you may want to consider moving to a property owned and managed by some other group. Sincerely, Margaret M. Mahoney, Director of Property Management.